Hello, and welcome back to Avon Talks. Baseball has long been known as America's favorite pastime. Coincidentally, for many, it also happened to be the only pastime. That was certainly the case for many of those growing up in Avon in the 1950s. With relatively few means of interaction with kids outside any given neighborhood and no formally organized activities, most children in this period resorted to baseball to pass the time. For this episode, we're joined by Bill Severni, David Jadovich, and Kevin Reichler as they discussed the pivotal role the sport played in the town as it grew from backyard pickup games to the formally organized community events that it is today through the evolution of the Avon Little League. Thank you all so much for being here. Avon today feels like a really compact community in a sense. It's no New York City, but it's got a lot more shops. It's got a lot more centers. They have the thing next to the town hall right now with the Walmart being built. A lot more recreational and commercial centers, but it wasn't always like this in Avon, and especially back in the 50s and 60s. So I was sort of trying to get your perspective on what was it like when you guys were growing up. What was Avon like back then?
Not quite a one-horse town, but I think we had 7 restaurants from the Canton town line all the way to the base of the mountain, right? And one of them was Marty's, which was only part-time.
Mm-hmm. And there was Al's.
Al's Pizza Hut, yeah.
So I came in later. I came in 1969, and I still remember when McDonald's first came into town, which was probably 71, 72. And it was so exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think another part of this is that today Avon is seen as like a very middle class to upper middle class town, very white collar, a lot of professionals here. But again, Avon, like much of the Farmington Valley back in the 50s and 60s, was very blue collar, right? Like Ensign and Bickford, it was a huge employer back in the day. So I was wondering, how do you think that sort of changed the role or the dynamic between people in the town back then?
Well, I would add that it was also an insurance town.
Oh, really?
There were a tremendous amount of people employed with the insurance companies of Hartford.
Mm-hmm. I think that may have been a little bit later, but earlier it was farmers. You had a bunch of farms, and then you had a blue blood part, the Alsops and families like that that had a lot of money, who employed people to work for them. And Avon was not homogeneous in the sense there were enclaves. So you had Huckleberry Hill, you had West Avon, you had the Center, you had Nod Brook. So, for example, I'm a center guy. Playing Little League, I saw kids for the first time that did not go to Towpath. I never knew that Huckleberry Hill School existed. And all of a sudden, I'm playing baseball against, I have no idea who they are until 7th grade when everything gets merged.
Right.
Everybody goes. So there were enclaves of people in
I experienced the same thing. Huckleberry Hill School was on its way out in, I think, early 70s, maybe 69, but they were on their way out. And you only heard of other people, like other athletes from other neighborhoods that you don't know who they are until you actually see them at a game when you make it to the league, or when you, in my case, made it to 6th grade, which was at the middle school at the time. So it's, but you're right, the town was divided into 3 defined sections as far as kids go.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is a conversation, Bill, you and I had earlier, but just about the idea that Avon back then, we have neighborhoods now, but Avon back then, the neighborhoods were much more distinct, right? There was a lot more separation. I don't want to say I'm sure you guys knew kids from other neighborhoods, but it wasn't nearly as much as you interacted with kids from your own neighborhood, right?
We really didn't know kids from other neighborhoods unless the parents knew them.
Going to Towpath, I mean, first of all, the class sizes were small.
Right.
So there were probably 60 kids per class at Towpath. I'm presuming maybe 75.
Grade level.
Because there were 3 classes for each grade. So you knew the kids, and basically back then, it was done alphabetically.
Right.
So I'm at the end of the the alphabet.
Uh-huh.
So I was always with the S's. So it was from like P to S or something to Z. That we were all so we went together. But as far as neighborhoods, how'd you get there?
Right.
There's no bus. There's no transport.
Right. And I don't know. Would you guys like drive back then, or was that no
Bike.
I rode my bike.
Bicycles.
Yeah. I
Okay.
lived on Arch Road,
Mm-hmm.
and I rode my bike to the Little League game, and I
Right.
rode my bike back,
Right.
and I rode my bike to the woods and cut through the woods with my caddy
Mm-hmm.
at the golf club.
Mm-hmm.
And you were very colloquial
Mm-hmm.
in that those are the kids you hung around with.
Right. I think one of the things that, sort of, I was thinking about when we were talking about the neighborhoods though earlier was that, like, would these neighborhoods have their own personalities? I know you sort of talked about it a little bit with, like, the people on Huckleberry Hill. They'd be very blue-blooded, but I was wondering, was this a thing where people sort of, like, did neighborhoods have their own identity in Avon, or?
Huckleberry Hill kids were really Collinsville kids because the Collins Axe Company, that went out in the flood, but that was a major employer.
Mm-hmm.
So that portion of Avon really was associated with the Collins Axe Company.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had the center people who were really associated with Ensign Bickford.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had the ethnicities,
Mm-hmm.
at least the Polish population,
Mm-hmm.
the Italian population.
Right.
You had Ensign Bickford houses that people lived in. So you had Columbus Circle was a neighborhood of Ensign Bickford.
Mm-hmm.
Climax Heights
Mm-hmm.
on the way up was Ensign Bickford. And
Mhm.
then the neighborhoods started, the upper class neighborhoods started to get built.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first one was Stony Corners.
Just growing up, it was a very limited set of people. It was a fairly,
Small town.
small town.
Yep. Small numbers.
The only thing that Avon provided for kids was Little League.
Right.
There were no other activities.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a pool.
There was
No town pool.
well, there was the country club across from high school, that little thing that they filled in now.
That was behind the firehouse.
Yeah, we thought it was a huge pool.
Oh, the
we
community pool.
went there during double sessions.
Yeah.
To hang out.
But that wasn't a town pool. That was still
No.
a private pool.
Yes.
Yeah.
No basketball.
Yeah.
No football.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No soccer.
No soccer. Oh yeah, Mr. Jadovich brought the soccer team in. But so Avon was a baseball town.
Right. And I mean, like, most of America back then was also a baseball. It was just a baseball country, I think.
America's game.
Right. Exactly. So I was sort of wondering, all this was by way of basically trying to highlight A, what Avon was like back then, and also B, what the role of Little League and baseball in general was like in the town. I mean, Little League is the organized version, but before we get to that, what about baseball just generally in unorganized life? Was that something that people did, or was it just Little League?
All the time.
In
All
the
the time.
Sand lots.
In the summertime, I played baseball every day.
Oh, really?
Outside. Play 2-on-2, 3-on-3.
Mhm.
If you can get 4 or 5 guys, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all we did.
Wiffle ball.
Yeah.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Down the street from me there, we played baseball
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And I went by there when I was like 25. I said, no way. We didn't. It wasn't much bigger than this little area, but we were playing baseball. And it was like an amphitheater
Uh-huh.
in their front yard. And that's what we played in. And
We
Just
played
odd.
across yards because
Uh-huh.
nobody had a field. So it was ours, the Nelsons, which then became the Rinaldis, and you played that way. And if you were right-handed, you had to pull the ball. If you were left-handed, you had to go the other way because my
Mhm.
father's garden was there. If the ball went in the garden, you couldn't go in.
Uh-huh.
And you could rake, you could do anything you want. My father would know.
Uh-huh.
And so the ball went in the garden, stayed until my father got home.
Was the I know in like cartoons now, a lot of like, or not now, but like in the early 2000s, a lot of them was like the trope where a kid would hit a baseball into like someone's window, and the neighbor would come out and chase them and start screaming at them. Was that like something that actually happened, or is that?
I'm sure that's happened. I mean, I used to play in a similar situation in Louis Payne's backyard, and same thing. I mean, it's very narrow. You play with ghost runners, and if you hit the neighbor's house, you run like hell. So that's what you did.
And everybody in Avon watched out for everybody else. We broke a window in our garage, collected money, went down to the center, bought a piece of glass, came back up, put the glass in. My father came home. And the first thing he said was, "What the hell were you doing on 44?" Because everybody knew everybody. And parents would watch over everybody else.
Yeah. Little League would be founded in Pennsylvania in like 1939. It wouldn't make its way to Connecticut or Avon until, you mentioned earlier, like 1951. What were those early years like? How receptive was the town from transferring, this largely unorganized baseball into an organized event for the kids?
It was a social event for people, at least the people who lived down the center and the parents. They would come. There were stands. People would watch. That was the entertainment. There was nothing else going on.
Right.
There was no movie theaters. There was nothing. So you had a group of people who would come and support.
Right.
And I can only think of me. I took pride that I wore a baseball uniform and I played out of town.
Right.
As ragtag a uniform as it was.
And what they would do to fund it is you would go, there was a Saturday, divided up, parents would take you in a car, and you would sell for $1, and you hit every single house in town. All the teams were divided from major league, minor leagues. You all went out, and you tried to collect dollars, and that's how the Little League was funded.
What do you mean by the ragtag uniforms?
Oh, just...
you complain about it. Pettits, they were new uniforms. Tell me, I played for the Eagles, and that Eagles became Tri-Town.
Right.
And all they did was take out the Eagle letters and put Tri-Town on.
They were just heavy wool. They made your skin itch. They were horrible.
And no one looked really, the hats were, no one looked like they were crisp as the kids have now.
Yeah.
They've got everything. They've got incredible uniforms. They all come with their backpack with 2 bats in the back. We had a trash barrel with a handle on it with 2 wheels, and hanging on the side were the running helmets. There were 2 batting helmets with a brim, and then there were 3 just like boxers sparring earmuffs
with straps that came across your top,
and
on the back, and just 2
some would
little plastic pieces like in here,
Uh-huh.
like you were in headphones.
Yeah.
Right.
And there were 3 bats that went from side to side.
No one walking in with their custom bats or anything.
No. They were lucky to have the gloves.
Say, we knew the game a hell of a lot better.
The other thing is, we didn't get to wear flip-flops to a baseball game to change into our cleats that everybody was doing now.
If you wore cleats, there were a lot. And you look in some of the pictures, there's a lot of kids wearing sneakers.
Right. I think another important aspect though is what sort of covering like what the structure was like in these growing days when it just got founded. I mean, obviously it changed. More teams got added. The way the teams were organized changed. The coaching staff changed later. But what was it like in these early days when it just got founded?
When it started, and the only reason I knew this is because a guy by the name of Art Niriani, who was a contemporary of my brother, sent me an article, and he played all the way through because we didn't move in until 54. So Avon Little League was like this, founded but disorganized in 51. The first organized teams were 52. And they were the Red Sox, the Braves, the Giants, and the Yankees. 2 from Boston, because the Braves were still in Boston at that point, and 2 from New York. That stayed until 57. Then they changed from baseball teams. They went to animals. And it was the Beavers, the Bears, the Lions, the Eagles, and the Hawks. And then in 62, they went to Tri-Town, Avon Plumbing,
Bernoli's,
Bernoli's,
Rotunda's,
O'Neill's,
Fitzgerald's.
and then Pettit's. And
Would these teams have, like, how organized were they?
you mean how well coached?
Yeah, like, what were practices like? Was that like a real thing?
Rarely on a field.
Mm.
We would go down. My father would take us past towpath to the closer to the center. There was a little grass area.
White School.
Yeah, the white school. Well, that was the annex. But we went beyond that. There was a little area. Of course, it seemed big at the time because we were tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have batting practice, fielding practice. Father would hit fly balls.
Because the other part of Sperry Park, that's where the high school played.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the high school had opened, they played there for a couple of years. And then when the high school stayed at the high school to play, it became the JV field.
The minor. Yeah.
Where the minor leagues are
yeah,
now.
Yeah.
That was the junior varsity baseball field. So Avon Little League had basically one diamond.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the outfield of the JV field is where the minor leagues were. But they really weren't. It was a bag laying on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember when the circus came in?
Sure.
They would take all the fencing down from the main field, and then the manure pile would be out in the outfield. And I can remember Jules Lermy. I don't know if you remember that name. Ball got hit. He goes running out, reaches his hand in this deep, comes out with the ball, throws it into the infield, and everyone just backed away. That's a home run.
And it was a snow fence. And it wasn't.
Yep.
Right.
The other thing is when you got a soda after the game,
It was a big deal.
a graveyard.
All flavors.
Yeah.
One graveyard, please.
That tastes good? Was it good?
Yeah.
But I mean, because you had asked, what are the things you remember that
Right.
you wouldn't graveyard?
Right.
But that's what it was called.
I think one of the other things I was wondering is, a lot of to me it sort of sounds like a lot of these teams they were part of the community. They were very well ingrained within the community, and I think one of the big reasons why a lot of people are fans of sports is sort of like that tribalistic aspect of supporting your local team. Was that a thing with Little League, like supporting one specific team, or?
I think that the town supported everybody.
I see.
Unless they had a player on a team. Do you remember marching in the parade?
Sure.
With Little League uniform on.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing to that point is, I mean, as we spoke earlier, at least when I played, you stayed on your team throughout your whole Little League career.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't do that anymore. So you built that camaraderie and that competitiveness against other towns, or other teams rather. But when All-Star team came around and you were playing against Canton or whoever you were playing against, that's where for the first time you played before quite a few people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a regular Little League game when I was growing up, there would be people there, but not like there is today.
Mm-hmm.
And until you got to the All-Star team, and then you would get a few hundred people, which is quite a bit.
Right. Would you say that these teams had their own sort of personality? Were they super competitive, or was it?
The coaches I had were really good. First, it was Mr. Kraft my first 2 years, and then it was Mr. Welsh. And Mr. Welsh had played AAA baseball, and his sons were good athletes. So, and then you kept everybody. And then my second year, Dickie Migley was on my team.
Mm-hmm.
So and Ray Heath was on my team. And Ray is probably the best left-handed pitcher Avon High School's ever had.
Right.
So by default, I played on good teams. And Mr. Welsh was a great coach, and Dickie was a really good athlete.
But I do have to say though, only because he's deceased now, Louis Payne was a phenomenal left-handed pitcher. I don't know if you ever saw him play. Yeah, Louis Payne was incredible.
Mhm.
So I'll put him up against your guy any day.
Ray was 10-0 his senior year and threw a no-hitter in the state tournament.
Okay, so hold on. I don't know what Louis' record was, but I remember a state tournament game where he gave up a base hit to first player, 27 down in a row. I think it was 21 at the time. Yeah, 21 batters in a row he put down. So, but they were both very good.
Yeah, no.
Were teams ranked back then? Did you guys have like a idea of who was the best team in Avon, or was that not a big deal?
Yeah, you knew.
Yeah.
If a team was good.
Okay.
When you played Tri-Town, you knew it was a good team.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept score.
Which one of you guys had the best team? I know you came a little after.
Yeah.
Well,
our generation was just so much better than theirs anyway. So we were better coached.
Uh-huh.
We were better prepared.
Right.
Our parents cared more.
Right.
But like Kevin said, yeah, you know who the good players are and good teams.
Uh-huh. I think this last part is, I kind of wanted to focus on parents back then. I feel like parents, especially for youth athletics, it's such a big part of it. Today, when, you know, aside from like just showing up to the games or like driving kids, they also, a lot of parents, like, they come up with orange slices for kids.
My father never talked to any of my coaches.
Okay.
Never spoke. If my father was there, he was in the car, out in the outfield, because they used to park the cars beyond the fence in the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
If you were there.
Mm-hmm.
When I coached, you couldn't talk to the kids. You couldn't say, "What the hell are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't. Literally, come with one piece of pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a team of 12, and you got one kid eating pizza and soda, and nobody getting anything.
Right.
Or you take a child out of a game.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I coached, everybody played, and I tried to make them not just play the minimum 2 innings,
right,
but everybody played.
Right.
How come you took my kid out?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add to that. I remember my parents. They didn't go to all the games. I mean, sometimes they were working, and they would just drop you off, and other times they just had other things to do. They would go to some games, but not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But we never had pizza after. We never had orange slices. Never.
No.
We didn't have
during the game.
We didn't have a snack, Mom.
They brought them into the dugout.
Yeah.
My last year, we played in the final game. The game's 1-0. We have bases loaded, 2 outs.
Mm-hmm.
The kid who is due up hasn't gotten a hit the whole year. Has not been on base the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
I work with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
She comes to me and says, "Please pinch hit for him." I said, "No." They struck out. And I went to him afterwards, and he's crying, and
right.
We lost. I said, "You know something? Sun's going to come up tomorrow. Your friends are going to be there.
Right.
If the worst thing that ever happens to you is that you made the out in the last game, you've had a pretty damn good life. If that's the worst thing that ever happened."
Right.
And Mom later on came to me several years later and said, "You were absolutely right. I'm glad you did that for me." But that's how parents stick their nose in.
Yeah. I think before I move on to, the development of Little League to what it's like today, I sort of wanted to cover, you guys all played Little League and, moved on to play from Little League, in a much more competitive atmosphere in college and et cetera. I wanted to sort of pick your guys' brain and your guys' memory to see what are some of the things that made Little League really special for you guys back then?
Well, for me, one of the great memories I'll have is it's where I learned about investment, and I didn't do very well in it because Mickey Mantle came to town one year. I don't know if you guys were around for that. And I have a good friend, Chuck Simonelli, who had a picture of Mickey Mantle taken at Sperry Park. And I traded all of my baseball cards for that one picture. And I had a lot of baseball cards. And Chuck Simonelli goes, "Yeah, I'll take that deal." So now that picture now is sitting on Billy Shea's desk because I gave it to him as a birthday present or something. But yeah, that was
very generous.
Yeah.
What I remember is Tony Dallas. Tony Dallas was a guy from Avon, had no children, but he was an umpire. And he would always umpire home plate, Steve Wright. And he wasn't very tall, but you had people like that who would donate the time. Mr. Barth had no children. He had O'Neill's.
Norbert was his name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you had people like that who were very, very generous to the kids and helped us grow up. Because not every parent had the time to be able to coach.
Right. 50s and 60s, these were like the fledgling years of Little League in Avon, but across the decades, it's grown a lot, and a lot of you guys were sort of in that decision-making role, whether it was serving on the board, being coaches, etc. How has the program changed in your eyes? How has it...
I'm on the board, and there is a person on the board who says, we should make it a priority of this board to win the state championship. Therein lies the problem.
Right.
It is no longer about teaching, about enjoying. It's putting pressure on kids way too soon. So you lose good athletes because they've had it. You got people playing fall baseball, winter baseball, indoors, outdoors.
Right.
And the kids just get sick of it.
Right.
And they get sick of their parents hanging over their heads. And the parents are to blame.
As a teacher, I'll add to parents aren't actually being parents. They're being facilitators. They're looking to make a pro out of their child. Who doesn't have a chance.
Not a snowball's chance in hell.
I wouldn't say not a snowball's, but the odds are against any child becoming a professional athlete, period.
Right.
And they are on the coaches. They are, well, how come you didn't run in there? How come you didn't steal there? How come you didn't do this? I said, because I didn't want to. I said, my job is to teach them how to play the game, how to appreciate the game, what does the situation call for in this setting. And if kids know that, they're learning baseball. And they don't even have to learn it to become a player in high school or beyond. They can appreciate the game for what the game has to offer.
But back to Billy's comment about the board member. The board has done a lot of wonderful things for Little League. I mean, what they've done over the years as far as lighting, as far as equipment, as far as fields, as far as, snack bar, broadcast booth, all that stuff. That's just been a phenomenal thing in conjunction with the town, supplying some of the money. So the board has been really, really good. I've been off it for several years now. You're off it, right?
What?
You were on the board at one time.
No.
I have a little different opinion.
As you would.
I grew up, my college baseball coach testifies and has testified of the danger of aluminum bats and the injuries they caused. When I was on the board, we got rid of the aluminum bats. We went back to wood. And parents complained because, they're not hitting home runs, they're not doing this. They had no idea the safety factor.
Right.
And when I got off the board, I went back to wood.
Well, we hit a lot of home runs with wooden bats.
Absolutely.
I hit one.
Absolutely. There's no question about that, Kevin. I saw you. I pitched against you. 28-inch bat, and I'm hitting a home run with a 20-inch wooden bat that's that big around. Barry Bonds used a 33-inch when he hit 70 home runs.
Yeah, but my point is that if you transition from where we grew up to where it is now, just from a pure Little League standpoint, it's 10 times better. I mean,
I'm not sure about that.
We have great. Let me finish. We have great memories of what we did, but the environment they're in now, compared to other communities, is so much better.
I appreciate the difference, and I can recognize the difference. For me personally, I don't like that change. It's become less about kids and enjoying the game, and it's more about the other stuff.
No, I agree with that part of it, but you also have to look at back to the community aspect of it. So many people show up at Little League games. So many people. I don't know if you've been to one lately, but it's an event. There's a lot of people there. The kids who aren't playing are running around, having fun, going to the snack bar, doing all sorts of things. Some kids, even their parents drop them off just to watch their friends play. It's just I think that part of it is really, really good.
So a lot of coaches today, even, they get their teams, they practice 2-3 times a week. As soon as that first game comes, they don't practice anymore. I practice my kids 52 to 55 times in a season. And everyone said, well, your kids, you're getting so much better. I said, that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to get better.
Right. Mm-hmm. This is one of the themes that we talked about a little, but as times change, the town has changed, more people have come, more activities are available. I played soccer, I ran cross country. I'll be honest, I played some basketball. I never got into baseball quite that much. I was a huge Red Sox fan because I grew up in Boston, but outside of that,
earn points.
But I think the sort of like the idea I was trying to get at is there's just so much more going on in the town. People are being pulled in so many different directions, and I was sort of wondering what is the role of Little League now and in the town as you see it today?
It's less of an event. Yeah. For us, and I really speak to Kevin because younger. That's all we had.
Yeah,
that's all we had. So it was an event. I mean, when you had a schedule, you played 15 games. Everyone was an event. And now it's just...
Do you know why it was 15 games? Played each team 3 times.
Yeah, but still there's and it started more like when I was coaching, and we coached against each other I think for a year or two, and I think it started becoming an event then, but just in a different, more community way. When you guys were playing and I was playing, it was an event to ourselves, right? It's something we look forward to every day to go whenever we played to go see a game. Now it's really like I said earlier, it's a family environment now. It's everybody's there,
right?
So I think it's very much an event, but it's a lot different event than when we grew up.
One of the main things that we talked about is the educational role that it's supposed to have. Little League, it's people playing in the Little League. They're not like going to win a World Series or anything. They're not like, obviously you want them to be competitive. You want them to learn competitiveness and teamwork, but it's not one of those things where winning is everything. And I was sort of thinking, like, why is this important to children still today as an educational process in your eyes?
Because you know what I think the most important part of it is it's the first time that you really learn how to fail in front of somebody. You strike out with the bases loaded at the end of the game, which I never did, but I heard you did, Kevin.
Maybe.
I'm kidding. But it's where you learn to fail.
Not when I was pitching, he did.
It's where you learn to fail and get back up on your feet. It's where you learn how to succeed and how to win with grace. It's all those things. It's where you shed a tear when you're mad with yourself.
Right.
It's when you console somebody who's in the same shoes. I think it teaches you so much about just life. But I also have to know, Kevin, did you actually really one-hop the school gym on a home run?
One-hop the gym?
I knew that. I'm setting you up.
There were no one-hops.
He actually hit the old gym on the fly. And
the cafeteria, not the gym.
Okay, the cafeteria. So it's stuff like that in a small town that it may happen 3 days ago, but eventually it makes its way around through people talking. You hear Reichler hit the gym. You hear Reichler hit the gym, and that's just how it is in a town like this.
Yeah.
Back then, growing up, and this guy here was one of the best pitchers ever to come out of Avon. I mean, he was phenomenal. And Kevin's the second best catcher ever to come out of Avon.
You know who he thinks is the best?
Not even close. I'm kidding.
For me, baseball and Avon formed a lot of my character. It reinforced how important baseball was to me. I am eternally grateful for some of the coaches that I had. Mr. Welsh, Mr. Kraft, Mr. Heath, Ray Heath's father would take me when I was 8 and just hit balls to me all the time. There were some people who were just so generous with their time. It made me a better player.
Right.
And I was able to then take that ability and use it to get into college and to have experiences in life that you wouldn't believe. Baseball, I mean, Chico Escuela on Saturday Night Live had the great quote, "Baseball been Betty good to me." Well, I got to play here. I got to play in college. I got to play in the Cape League. I got to play in Europe. I got to coach college. I got to scout for a major league team. Baseball started here, and it was only out of the generosity of those people. Because my father was old. I never played catch with my dad. It was those people who gave their time, their love of the game, and their energy to help me become a better person. And I will be eternally grateful.
As am I.
This podcast is an Avon Historical Society production, edited by me, Ethan Guo. Special thanks to Priscilla Marshall for the graphics. If you'd like to support this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever else podcasts are downloaded. Want to be featured on a future episode or stay up to date with the podcast newsletter? Feel free to reach out to us at avontalksahs@gmail.com. For more on the Avon Historical Society, visit www.avonhistoricalsociety.org.